Hi, I'm Jenny Priestley, Content Director at TVBEurope. Today I'm joined by Scott Young, EVP of Warner Brothers Discovery Sports Europe, to discuss the work that will be going into bringing every slip, slide and jump from Milano Cortina 2026 to viewers across Europe. Hiya, Scott.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
I'm good. So obviously my first question has got to be, how many European markets will Warner Brothers Discovery be operating in during the Games?
Typically, we operate in 47 markets for Games time, for the Olympic Games. That's in 21 languages.
So how will audiences be able to watch both the live and highlights coverage this time round?
Well, depending on which market you're in, either in Eurosport, which has been the home of the Olympics for a long time now, and HBO Max, which we have just launched in Italy and Germany to now fully round out HBO Max being in all our markets in Europe. In the UK, it's on TNT Sports and its streaming companion Discovery Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where you are, different ways to watch. Of course, our social media team will be delivering short form content on all the popular social handles across all those markets. But yeah, predominantly the linear channels are Eurosport and TNT with HBO Max and Discovery Plus.
So if you're delivering to lots of different markets across the event, will you be focusing on different sports for different markets?
To a certain extent, yes. I mean, I guess the difference with the Olympic Winter Games is that some sports resonate more in certain markets than others. Some of the better examples of that is, say, ski jumping, which is very popular in Poland particularly, and also Germany. Whereas, say, biathlon, we know is very popular in France. And curling, of course, actually does resonate very well in the UK, as well as Italy and other markets. So I think from what we've seen through our normal winter sports diet, so we're an annual winter sport broadcaster from the end of October through the end of March, with over 500 events that sit across all those channels I mentioned before. The beauty is we really get a feel for what sports work with what audiences. So yeah, ideally, the Olympic Winter Games are there for everybody to enjoy every minute in every market. But we will also, from a linear perspective, really hone in on those sports that those local audiences absolutely love.
So will the feeds from OBS be coming into Paris or London and then sent out? How are you delivering the feeds to your different markets?
So we have a team of about 150 people strong at the IBC in Milan. So we take all the feeds from OBS into our technology hub in Milan. This is the first year where we've built out our own technology platform, iBuild. It is a very highly advanced piece of tech where it allows us to import the streams, manipulate and manage all those feeds into the different formats that work across our technology, and then distribute those feeds back into the different colos, being London or Paris, and then separately out into the streaming teams and also the different markets who are then taking individual streams for their markets depending on the sport. So we start at the IBC ourselves, where we receive everything from OBS and then distribute accordingly.
And is that all being done by the cloud or satellite? How are all those feeds coming in and out?
No, fiber distribution. We tend not to go via satellite. We don't use SRT feeds for the Olympic Games. So it's fiber optics that takes us from the IBC directly into particularly the two colos being Paris and London.
And you mentioned iBuild there. How long has that taken to be developed? And is this something that we'll see used by TVBEurope Sports on future events?
Absolutely. The project's about 2 years in the making from the technology team. True investment into the ability for us to be a standalone broadcaster wanting to take in every feed possible. So as we saw from Paris, we had over 64 concurrent streams on a streaming platform. This is a real point of engagement for our audiences. Being able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, is a real future of multi-sport broadcasting. So this technology will definitely be with us right through to Brisbane 32 and all the games in between, but also other major events like Roland Garros, where again, we arrive at a particular destination and have multiple feeds that need to be spread out across our market. So I think it's a fantastic piece of technology to have in our back pocket as a sports broadcaster, with the idea that we want to be able to make sure that every piece of broadcast we've got, every piece of content is available.
And possibly will we see it for the Commonwealth Games later this year, which of course TNT Sports will be broadcasting here in the UK for the first time?
Yes, but we don't really need the power of the iBuild for the Commonwealth Games, the way that the Commonwealth team in Glasgow 26 have built out their technology hub. We don't necessarily need this superpower of a brain, but we haven't really dived into that too much. If we need it, it's there.
Yeah. Okay, great. This, of course, is the second Olympic Games in a row that have been held in the European time zone. How has that impacted your planning?
It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Look, it's a privilege to have Olympic Games in your backyard. And we said this about Paris. These are our games in our time zone for our sports fans. And we're very, very lucky and privileged to be able to do that again. I think to be able to have the games time, particularly in time zone where people can wake up in the morning, enjoy the highlights from the day before, join the programming as it starts with those pre-shows and then get into competition. I think that's how you become a real immersive viewer in something as immersive as the Olympic Games. So we're very excited that the next Olympic Games after Paris is also in our backyard. And after LA, we're back here again in France for the next Winter Olympics. So we've got another one to come soon.
Lots of planning already, I guess, already underway for LA 28 and further ahead.
Indeed.
In terms of your own coverage, you talked obviously I want to ask you about special innovations. You've obviously talked about iBuild, but in terms of what we might see on screen, are there any new special innovations this time round?
Look, our role as an Olympic broadcaster is storytelling. So the innovation that we really lean into is who are the storytellers that work best with us. We have 109 Olympians that are working with us who have attended 218 Olympic Games across that group. So an amazing depth of knowledge, right, and experience that can really help our audience understand what's actually taking place. So our innovation starts with not necessarily technology, putting aside what the team have just done with the iBuild, which is quite remarkable. From a content delivery point of view, that will help us make sure that every moment of the games is available, long and short form, linear and streaming and digital. But the real innovation is how we tell the story. I can break this down maybe in two parts. It's the take me there and make me care. So how do we take audiences as close to the games as possible? And that's working very closely with OBS, right, as to how we get technology such as drones, such as fly cams, such as mini cams. How do we really take an audience for a ride down the slopes of either Bormio or Cortina? And then the make me care part is through commentary. Now, how do our commentators help our audience understand just what's taking place? What has this athlete really given up in their life to be able to achieve this dream? And when they win a medal, just what that medal really means. So I always look to innovation to be part of the storytelling as much as the technology.
So I'm going to have to ask you about those two little letters that we all keep talking about in the industry, AI. Will you be using AI in any way during the games?
Look, AI has existed for quite a while in and around our production. So we have not developed any new form of broadcasting or tech with AI. We've seen editing software that's existed for quite some while that uses AI. But our form of sports broadcasting really is to dive into the very visceral nature of the competition and how that athlete has gone. I know that OBS leans a lot on AI, and we rely a lot on those feeds that come from OBS. We don't cover the sports ourselves as a host broadcaster. So I think from our side, we're yet to see where AI really embellishes that story beyond just genuine knowledge from a competitor who's done it.
Yeah. What about studios? How many different studios are you going to have on the ground? Or if you got one that everybody will be having cameras in and all the different countries will be broadcasting from that you cover? Tell me about the studios that you'll have in Milano.
Well, we have both studios on site in 2 locations that are used by as many markets that wish to use them. Some are dedicated, some can drop in. And of course, we have our home-based studios back in the major markets where they'll be presenting from. The 2 studios on site, the first one I'll say in partnership with Livigno is the Snow Dome. a spectacular, I'll say, igloo-style studio that we're building in Livigno, which sort of leans into the narrative of those sports, a bit younger, a bit more fun, a bit edgier, where we thought, hosting those programs from inside an igloo in Livigno would look spectacular. And I can say the plans are coming together as they're building the snow dome. It looks brilliant. I think audiences are going to love it. In Cortina, we've gone down the more traditional road. We have built a temporary multi-story building that looks at the slopes of Cortina, where our markets can operate from. There are 3 studios in that building. They will move around different markets through the day. There are also multiple stand-up positions. CNN will broadcast from there as well as a partner of this business. And of course, we'll then be close to women's downhill, women's alpine, the sliding centre, and of course, curling, and not far from the other venues such as biathlon and ski jumping. So Cortina, and particularly for its heritage of the Olympic Games, is going to be a real hub for us. But then in each of the ice venues down in Milan, you'll also be able to present your programs, a different style of studio, but you'll be able to present from ice hockey, speed skating, and figure skating.
So does that mean that nearly all of the presenting that's done on screen this time round will be done actually on site rather than it's people stood in a virtual studio somewhere?
No, there's a mix. And I think it's important to have a mix because the nature of winter sport means that sometimes the event can be delayed. Sometimes through weather it can be postponed. Also, the broadcast hours are longer than daylight hours. So we need to have studios that operate in all sorts of environments. So we have our home-based studios that will always be operating so people are back at a location able to curate the content and tell the story, and then touch base with those teams that are on site.
So in terms of, obviously the games are spread out. It's a really big games, this one. How are you connecting your talent with the talent that's taking part in the games? Will you be in the mix zone? Or will you be, doing one interview from what, presenter from one place and then athlete from another? How are you connecting all of the talent that's out there?
So we connect each of our mix zones back into our own facility at the IBC. And I should actually say, for the first time, we've also built out our own mix zone kits that are more compatible with our broadcast technology at the IBC. So the way we're now, from a technology standpoint, we are far more connected in the ability to be in every mix zone at every venue where we will be with our own technology and our own reporters, connecting back into the IBC, where it will then join the overall distribution back into all the markets. So if you're in a studio in Paris or Germany or the Nordics or London, you'll be able to connect to any mix zone across our entire market, irrespective of who's standing there. We have a team of people we call the hub. So that group of reporters know that they're working for our entire organization, not just one market. And every athlete they speak to can be broadcast in any particular market.
Do you have to, when you're deciding on the technology that you're going to have out in those mix zones, do you have to think about whether how well they're going to go? It's going to work in extreme colds, which I guess in a way, it's going to be cold out there, isn't it? They're going to be stood around in the cold. And you want to make sure that the camera doesn't freeze up or lenses don't get overly fogged up. How do you go through that process? Are you able to test it, or how do you know that the kit that you're sending out there is going to work?
I think the first advantage is being a winter sport broadcaster every year. We have the great advantage of being able to, from the end of October through to the end of March, with over 500 events, our kit and people, because I would say the humans are just as vulnerable as the technology, need to be appropriately weather protected. But yes, your question is valid. We need to make sure that we have the right equipment in the right environment. The great thing about sport in Europe across winter is that, there is well-tested people and equipment that know exactly what is required to operate throughout winter. We hope it's cold because it is quite essential to the successful running of Milano Cortina.
So what is the biggest challenge for Warner Brothers Discovery in covering Milano Cortina this time round?
Look, there are numerous challenges, but to answer the biggest, I would say just making sure we're there when the right story breaks, just making sure that that the momentous occasions that you see through the Olympic Games are captured on our screens. We've got the right people to help tell the story, and that's available and accessible on all of our platforms. I could go on about technology and our amazing people we have behind the scenes, and the thousands of people that have helped put this together. But I think they're some of the best people in the world to do this. So it's not a challenge, it just takes time. When we turn up at Milano Cortina, we are there like everybody else. We're there to watch and be spectators and to capture that action and make sure that action gets back into the palms and hands and TV screens of those who love what we're watching.
I can't wait to watch it. I'm excited to watch it all and see what happens. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Absolute pleasure. See you again.